let's go get some comics. Nexus. Here we go. My favorite place to go in downtown Kingston. Follow me. So as you can see, huge collection of comics. Trade paperbacks, they got all the classics up above there, lots of wicked back issues. Tons of new stuff. Look at all the new comics to choose from. This is gold for me. I love this. You got your indies, you got your DC comics, we got all our Marvel comics. And if you come down further, we got tons of back issues here. And one of my favorite spots to go is right behind us here is the dollar bins. And we all know that dollar bins are gold for comic book collectors. And as you can see, we've got some dollar gold in here. Look at that. I might even buy that right there. So I'm going to peruse these for a bit, and we'll talk to the main man, Adam, here in a couple minutes. Hey everybody, I'm here at Nexus Comics with my good friend Adam. How's it going, Adam?
Doing fairly well.
We were almost going to shake hands. There we go, right on. So this is my favorite place to go to in Kingston. Love the comic books here. Love the back issues, especially the dollar bins. Like all comic book collectors love dollar bins.
I hunt at dollar bins at every convention I go to.
Right? Because when you find, well, I've got a stack right here that I got. I always get a bunch of them. I'll go over these when I get home with you. The cool thing about it, it's almost like a looking, searching, and finding gold when you find something for $1.
That's
right?
thing. It's that treasure hunt, and often at times there's things that you're looking for that are hard to find, like things that most people don't even think about, but like are things you even sometimes don't even know yourself that you want it. You find it and you're like, wow, I didn't even know this existed. And other times it's just things like, that one issue out of 10 that you've been hunting for 5 years.
Yes, like my Star Wars holes I'm filling here, right? Awesome. Okay, so if Marvel movies are huge right now, obviously, right? If somebody was deciding, wow, I want to take the leap into comic books, where's a good spot for somebody who has no comic books but loves the movies to start? Let's say with Marvel, because that's like the biggest one right now, right?
So parts of it is kind of take a look at, if you enjoy the Marvel movies, what do you like most? Do you like Spider-Man? There's like tons of Spider-Man titles. Mm-hmm. There's Peter Parker. There's Miles Morales.
Right. So let's take Spider-Man then. That's great.
Yeah.
So and there's so many. When I was younger, there was just Spider-Man. When we were both younger, right? It was like we basically had one option, Amazing Spider-Man, and then we grew to more. But now it's crazy. So let's take Spider-Man. Where would be a good spot to start? Amazing, like with Miles Morales, or
well, that's the thing. Part of it is decide whether you want Peter Parker or Miles Morales.
Okay.
And then either way, there's usually some good spots. Because Miles is a little bit newer, there's a few more easier to get graphic novels that have his early days, and that you can kind of like quickly build up. His titles generally aren't as long lasting. Spider-Man has a long history, but there's also a lot of great graphic novels that you can pick up at different points in his life. As well as just the other year, Chip Zdarsky did a really cool series called Spider-Man Life Story that took Spider-Man's history and did it chronologically if Spider-Man aged in reality.
Oh wow, how interesting is that?
They took stories from each decade, but then said, like Spider-Man's from 1960, this is a cool story from 1970, but Spider-Man's now 10 years older.
Wow.
So each issue did a new version of a story from that decade, but having Spider-Man age accordingly.
A little more reality to it, I guess.
A little
more reality based. Yeah, wow, that's amazing. And trade paperbacks are great because everybody wants Spider-Man #1. I can't afford it or find it.
At times you can find like good reprints, but at the same time, most reprints aren't going to be valuable. So you might as well just grab a graphic novel that you can read, handle, not worry about.
Okay.
And usually, graphic novels get you a big chunk of stories for a cheaper price.
I've been buying the Battle Pope lately of those, right? Yeah, the Battle Pope, excellent series. Okay, Canadian indie comics, which is what I'm thriving to do. Name some comic books that they should be looking for. because indie comics, we got to support the indie guys, right? Like, you got to support your local comic book stores, but we got to support the indie guys too. So, do you have any suggestions of who they can look for?
So, parts of it is, when it comes to indie, it doesn't seem as indie in many people's mind, but Image Comics is creator owned.
Right.
So even though Image has been around for over 20 years, everything that they produce is actually creator owned. So there's a lot of they publish a lot of books that would be indie books almost anywhere else.
Right.
And the creators still own the property. So you're actually supporting the creators when you're doing that. So Image has an amazing amount of talent, and there's always getting more. There's lots of Canadian creators, big names, small names.
Oh, I have such respect for Todd McFarlane. Like, he's one of my, I really like Todd McFarlane because he's smart and he's talented. You know what I mean? And he's basically the one that started all that, like, way back then. Where's my plaque? You know, where's my plaque? I need a plaque. You know, give me something. Give me a raise. Give me a bump for my Spider-Man. So, yes, that's a great point.
And
and he's Canadian.
He's Canadian, and for Spawn issue 308, 309, which both sold out, were actually drawn by Ken Lashley.
Oh, very cool.
Who's a Canadian.
Yes, more Canadian content, my friends. So that's great. So Image Comics are great, and of course we all know that Walking Dead spawned from there as well.
Yeah.
And now the creator is now one of the main owners in Image, I believe, one of the movers and shakers in there.
He's one of the top owners of Image Comics, and he recently put out a new series called Firepower.
Right. Yeah. And that's another one where if you're interested in finding out the Walking Dead story aside from the television, the trade paperbacks are what, like $20 for 4 issues?
Yeah, or you get about an average of about 5 issues for $20. And even the TV series, while it's based on the show, does have a lot of characters and stories that are different.
Right.
So even if you read the comics, the show isn't exact, and if you watch the show, you can then read the comics and still see differences.
Yes.
Like, one of the big things is Daryl.
I was going to say, spoiler, no Daryl!
Daryl is not from the comics.
Right.
He even for years, Robert Kirkman kept on thinking about putting him in, and he even knew everyone would be buying that first appearance of Daryl like mad, and he hinted at it, and then he made the decision, you know what? That will be a major difference. And so everything that Daryl does is not part of the comics. And so, you know, it's a huge difference. So, you know, you could be basing a story and you've read the story, you know exactly how it happens, but then because of Daryl, he can change that anywhere.
Right.
As well as in the show, characters have either survived or died earlier. Certain characters have died in the show that have survived the entire run of the comics. Certain people have done the opposite. So it's actually like a fairly neat way of like reading what the show is based on, and even the show is still basing the stories on it. So you can, even if you've read ahead, you can kind of see where the show is heading, but at the same time, there's no guarantee how accurate or how different it'll be. So it's actually still enjoyable to read the comics and watch the show.
Yeah, and I would say too, like I always mention to people, I was in a band with a guy who loved the TV show but would not read the comic. Was so opposed to any kind of thing like that. And then I'm slipping in comments about it, and now he has to read it. Because it's good because you'll hear people say, well, the comic's better than the TV show. No, the TV show's better than the comic. Well, you can find out for yourself. And I like the comic book better myself, just because you can do more things in the comic book, and you don't have like a censor there saying, well, you can't put that on TV. Although they did have a lot of liberties with the TV show. I myself, I prefer the comic book, but I like comic books better than TV anyway. What did you prefer?
That's the thing. I find the comics, like as you said, like have a lot more liberty. Characters are less inclined to be like the actor and more like a surprise. You know, there's at times a little bit more swearing in the comic. Things are a little bit more allowed. But at the same time, what I have enjoyed is like at times like knowing a story, watching the show and like fully knowing, I know this is happening, but is it going to be the same thing?
We enjoyed that as well.
Doubting myself of going like, okay, this could be different. Are they going to do something really different or just subtly different?
And then after you can judge it and say whether it was better or not, right?
Oh yeah.
I thought with the Walking Dead comic books, like I love Spider-Man. I find it's very, very friendly, most of it. The Walking Dead books, I would start reading it, and it'd be like, I'd hit an impact part, and I'd have to read the comic again. Just because that one part of the story was amazing, and it made me read it again. I love the storytelling. The TV show occasionally would anger me. I never found out with the comic book, which is strange, right? It could be the comics are in my heart, and I love that more. I don't know.
Well, part of it, they both the comic and the show at times have slow builds, and but there's an aspect of the comic as you know you're gonna keep reading every month, and it's like a little bit easier to read. While when the show has a slow build, and like you have an episode that barely anything happens, and then you want that next event, and until that event happens, you actually start getting angrier that it hasn't happened.
I said that before. Yes.
And then usually once that event actually occurs, it's something major you really enjoy, and you're like, that was worth all of that time.
Yeah.
But like you're angry for a larger amount of time. While the comic, you can, you read a little bit more easier, and even if nothing happens, it's usually you get that build up, but you don't get that like anger build up.
Right? Yeah. I can totally relate to that. I totally relate to that. Okay, so I should come back regularly because we could talk forever about comic books. We both love comic books, obviously. So what I want to suggest to everybody is if you are into the movies, the television shows of comic book media, any kind of pulp culture, The Boys, oh my gosh, wow, that's another, we could go on forever probably about that. Check out the source. Go to the comic book stores. Talk to people like Adam that can help you find what you're looking for to see where these stories originated. I promise you, you will be impressed. And it's a great thing to read comics. I find it a very peaceful thing. It really calms me down. Some people meditate. Some people read comic books. Some people do both. All right, so I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Again, this is my buddy Adam here. We'll just do the elbows again. Whammo! All right, and this is Nexus Comics, downtown Kingston. Tons of games and stuff. I'm just focusing on the comics today. We'll come down again and maybe we'll show you some of the other things around here that I don't know too much about. Comic books I know. The Dungeons and Dragons and all that stuff I knew when I was 10, but I'd love to break back into it and see it. Thanks for tuning in, folks.
All right, thank you.
Right on.